Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Today's video is going to be about college football because I figured week one started last night with UAB beating Jacksonville State by the score of 31-0. And there's, I believe, 15 games coming up tonight and around the same amount of games tomorrow night. And then, of course, all day Saturday, there's also a game on Sunday night and a game on Monday night. So I figured, what better time to just sit back and talk college football than right now when we're fixing to officially start week number one. I'll say I hope all weekend long the games aren't like last night's game because UAB destroyed Jacksonville State. I actually watched the majority of it, and by mid-third quarter I was like, you know what, this game's over with. So I turned it off. Before we get into our college football discussion, let me say I one time knew a man who had a Georgia Pac-Man game, and it was a regular Pac-Man, but it had the Georgia Bulldog stickers all over it. And I asked him, can you actually beat that game? And he said, no, I usually get to the very end of it on the last level, and I get beat, and I say, well, I'll beat it next year. I knew a man one time who had a Georgia lawnmower, and it had Georgia Bulldog stickers all over it. And I asked him, do you actually use that to cut your grass? He said, no, I just leave it sitting here for it to look pretty. I wait till a Bama fan comes by and cuts my yard, and then I brag about how good my yard looks because of the Bama fan. My daughter went to school the other day, and everybody in the class was wearing a Georgia Bulldog shirt except for her. She was wearing a Clemson shirt. And the teacher asked her why she was a Clemson fan, and she said, well, Mama's a Clemson fan, and Daddy's a Clemson fan, so therefore I think I should be a Clemson fan. And the teacher said, well, what if Mama was an idiot and Daddy was a moron? Would you still be a Clemson fan? And she said, no, in that case, I'd be a Georgia fan. But before we get into our college football talk, by the way, I'm just doing that because that game is 2 days away, and I just enjoy talking smack. But before I started the YouTube channel, I never really honestly truly liked to make predictions because, for one, nobody likes to be wrong. For two, you can do all the study and all the film work you want to and actually know the teams and know what you think is going to happen, but then come game day, nothing you expected to happen happens. So you can actually be wrong even if you have, studied up on it. But I made my prediction with the Clemson-Georgia game back in July. So after you see this video, whether you're a Clemson fan or a Georgia fan or just a college football fan in general, please feel free to get on the comments section and leave your score prediction for the game coming up on Saturday. But Cam Newton was released by the Patriots on Tuesday, and my man Evan actually messaged me on Facebook and asked me if I had any thoughts on it. So just in case anybody else wants to know, let me go ahead and say it right now. I was not surprised by it. I was not shocked by it. I actually thought it was the best decision because I think the Patriots decided when they drafted Mac Jones that unless he was just flat out awful all throughout spring and summer, that he was going to be their starting quarterback. And all I've heard about Mac Jones so far has been rave reviews about how good he's been. So had Mac Jones been named the starter with Cam Newton on the team, you'd had all these people questioning why in the world you got a rookie starting when you've got an experienced guy like Cam Newton on the bench. Plus, every time Mac Jones had a bad quarter or a bad half or a bad game, he would have been looking over his shoulder thinking, I'm fixing to lose my quarterback job. And honestly, I don't think Cam Newton would have been a very good teammate to Mac Jones or the rest of the team in the locker room because I think he would have been pouting, thinking he should have been the starting quarterback. So the move didn't surprise me. I actually think it was the best decision the Patriots could have made. So just in case anybody wanted to know, I wanted to go ahead and throw that out there. Now, let me say this, and this is the honest God's truth. I've been telling jokes to be funny because the game's 2 days away, and I like to get my Georgia fans all riled up. But let me say this. Dale, who subscribed to the channel, I guess about 3 weeks ago now, actually asked me how I became a Clemson fan. And I know I've told this story before, but I didn't go as in depth with it as I'm going to go today. And as the channel continues to grow, I may have to come back on here in the future and tell this story again, so bear with me, because if you watch all these videos, and I encourage you to watch the videos, you may hear this story again in the future. But this is honest God's truth, no joking, this is truth. When I was growing up in my house with me, my mama, and my grandparents and my sister, we didn't have cable or satellite. All we had was regular TV. And back in those days, it was before My Network TV and the CW. All we had was NBC, CBS, ABC, and Fox. That was all we had. But if you ever see a picture of me when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old, most of the time, even when I had to go to school, I had on a Georgia Bulldogs shirt. But nobody in my family watched sports. But for some reason, they all had this crazy idea that since we lived in Georgia, I needed to wear a Georgia Bulldogs shirt and support the Georgia Bulldogs, which to me, even as a 7 or 8 year old boy, made zero sense to me. Why you think because you live in a state, you've got to pull for that team. So anyway, I was too young to buy my own clothes, so whatever they bought me, I had to wear. So I spent most of my childhood at 6, 7, 8 years old wearing Georgia Bulldog hats and Georgia Bulldog shirts. And now as I look back, I know why I stayed sick all the time when I was a boy. No, I'm just kidding about that. But seriously, I did wear, Georgia shirts. But at school, all my friends I hung out with always talked about sports. But since my family didn't watch them, I didn't watch them. So I knew nothing about anybody, any team. And most of my friends had on Georgia Bulldog shirts, but I knew a few that wore Georgia Tech shirts. And of course, when you're that age, you don't know anything about anybody because you're too young to comprehend and understand. You just wear what you're given. And back in those days, Florida State was good, Florida was good, Alabama was good, and Miami was good. So there was a few kids in my school that wore those shirts as well. But when I got ready to start school at 11 years old in August of 95, I made a decision that I was going to start watching college football. I was tired of all my friends talking about football, and I had to sit back and just listen. I couldn't say anything because I didn't know anything. So I said, you know what? I don't know who I'm going to pull for, who I'm going to like, but it's not going to be Georgia, because by the time I got to be 11 years old, I had already despised Georgia because of my family trying to tell me I've got to wear their stuff because I live there, and it made no sense to me. So at 11 years old, I had already just grown a strong disdain for Georgia. So, you get about 2.5 weeks off for Christmas break and New Year's break when you're in school. So on New Year's Day of 1996, I decided, you know what? I'm going to watch college football. I'm at home. I'm 11 years old. I'm old enough now to watch the game and understand. I'm going to go in the bedroom, turn it on, and whoever's on, I'm going to watch. And I turned on the TV, New Year's Day, 1996. Now, if you're a longtime college football fan or a longtime Clemson fan, you may remember this game, not for good reasons, but New Year's Day, 1996, and NBC, for the longest time, carried the Gator Bowl every year on New Year's Day at 11 o'clock a.m. So I turned on NBC at 11 o'clock, and it's Clemson and Syracuse. I didn't know anything about either team, didn't know where they were from, had never heard of them. And I turned it on, and this is back when Syracuse had Donovan McNabb and Marvin Harrison. They were really good, and their coach's name was Paul Pasqualoni. And Clemson had Nealon Green at quarterback and Raymond Priester at running back, and Tommy West was the head coach. And the first time I saw Nealon Green on the sidelines warming up, and he turned to the side and threw the ball, as soon as he threw the ball and I saw that orange helmet with that white tiger paw on it, I said, that's my team. Didn't know anything about Clemson, had no idea where they were. Later on found out that it's just about the same distance from here to Clemson as it is from here to Athens. But at the time, they could have been in California for all I knew. I did not know. and then they went out there and promptly got beat by Syracuse by the score of 41-0. So it was terrible. When I decided before the game that was my team, and they went out there and got destroyed. But I've got a t-shirt somewhere that says Clemson born, Clemson bred, and when I die, I'll be Clemson dead. And I agree with that because I was not born in a Clemson family. But the first time I saw that Tiger Paw turn toward 1 o'clock, I said, that's my team. And the reason why I say turn toward 1 o'clock is because if you see my hat, that's the way the Tiger Paw is supposed to be. If it's straight up and down, it's not a real, legit Clemson Tiger Paw. But turn toward 1 o'clock, it's a Tiger Paw. So that is the story of how I became a Clemson fan. And like I said, if I have to in the future come back on here and tell that story again, I will. But I've been a Clemson fan since I was 11 years old. I didn't become a fan when Dabo took over and they started winning. I pulled for him through the Tommy West days, and I pulled for him through the Tommy Bowden days. They are just my team and always will be. If you cut me, I bleed orange. But hopefully everybody's looking forward to the games coming up tonight. There's, I believe, like I said earlier, 15 games in total tonight. One thing to look forward to is Boise State and Central Florida. I actually think this is going to be a sneaky good game that nobody's talking about because both teams are starting with brand new head coaches. We know Boise State's head coach left to go to Auburn, and of course Central Florida's head coach left to go to Tennessee, and now Auburn's old head coach is the coach at Central Florida. But I believe that's going to be a good game coming up tonight. And, of course, Tennessee also plays tonight. One thing to look forward to, if you do not know this, with Josh Heupel's offense, Tennessee's going to score. There's not a doubt in my mind Tennessee will score. I don't know if they'll stop anybody. They may give up 40 points to everybody they play, but they will score. But last year, Central Florida, Josh Heupel's teams, they gave up an average of 10 to 12 pre-snap penalties a game. They were notorious last year for pre-snap penalties. There was actually one game where the game started 1st and 10, and Central Florida got the ball first, and they got flagged 4 times to start the game, either delay of game or a false start. Now, how in the world you get a false start in an empty stadium with nobody there, I have no idea, but they did it 4 times. If he continues that trend with getting all those pre-snap penalties at Tennessee, even though their offense is going to be good, he's going to be putting them in some 2nd and longs and 3rd and longs all season long. But of course tonight they're favored by, I think, 33 points because Bowling Green is flat out pitiful. Ohio State, another national championship contender, is also on the field tonight playing Minnesota. And, of course, there's another Big Ten matchup tomorrow night when Michigan State takes on Northwestern. But the big game tomorrow night is North Carolina against Virginia Tech. North Carolina is a top 10 team, and Virginia Tech used to be a really good team until Justin Fuente took over. And if they don't win tomorrow night, he will start the season on the hot seat, which in my opinion, he's already on the hot seat. So please don't forget to leave me your thoughts or comments or suggestions on what your prediction is for the game on Saturday between Clemson and Georgia. And I've already said that I think both teams make the playoffs. I'm sticking with that. So I don't really think it matters who wins the game, but I know if you're a fan of either team, it matters. But in the grand scheme of things, I think both teams are going to the playoffs. But I do think there's much more pressure on Georgia to win the game than there is Clemson. And the reason why I say that is because Clemson has made the playoffs every single year since the playoffs started. And Georgia has the same amount of playoff appearances as Michigan State. That's fact. Look it up. It happened. One day, Georgia will realize you don't win recruiting championships. You have to actually win on the football field championships. And when they figure that out, they'll be in good shape. But in the meantime, they have the same amount of playoff appearances as Michigan State. So I think Clemson's already proved they're a top 5 team. Georgia has to prove they're not a top 5 recruiting team. They're a top 5 on the field football team. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What's the longest word in the English language? Smiles. The first and last letter are a mile apart. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.